Hey, welcome to another episode of Electrical Theology, Esoteric Life Coaching. I am your host, Charles. This is living coaching. This is not life. This is living coaching, or coaching for life. I say all that differently so you hear it differently, because sometimes we need to say things to ourselves differently than we've been saying them so we can get a different outcome. So if you want a different outcome, a whole you, then stay tuned, guys. Alright, let's get started. Alright guys, we want to we feel like we've given our life away to other people, places, and things. Some of you have, some of you haven't. But for those who have, if you want your life back, we need to sort of redeem like a coupon. You redeem and get something back. But redeem really just means opportunity in one sense, or it allows an opportunity. An opportunity, as you know it, is a port for unity. Why is it a port for unity? Because we bifurcated ourselves, we separated ourselves, we divided ourselves, and so therefore we're not whole, right? So therefore we don't have a whole or fulfilling life, right? We have a joyless life, and so we need to get more joy into our life. How do we do that? We need to understand poverty mentality, right? Poverty mentality is just not about money. It's a way of life. You have a poverty life. A poverty life is you're poor because you're choosing to be poor. Why did you choose to be poor? Like, no, Charles, I didn't choose to be poor, I just am. Well, poor or poverty starts with a thought, right? People don't know they're poor until they can compare it to someone else, or someone else tells them something, and they can believe that poverty statement that someone gave them. If someone says, you're living out in the country, you're enjoying life, you're happy every day, running barefooted, you catching fireflies or whatever, you're happy. You don't know poor or not. Only until you end up saying going to school, and then someone else says, hey, wow, nice clothes, and you're like, oh, thanks, and they're like, that wasn't meant as a compliment, and then they start getting into telling you that you're poor, and so you go home and you say, are we poor? Right, and then the parents, they'll give whatever explanation. My point being is, poverty starts in the mind, right? There's mental poverty, spiritual poverty, financial poverty, emotional poverty. So there's a lot of poverty. Poverty is just, you gave that thought, poverty, attention. You separated it from the feeling of being whole and then divided that. And so because of this division, right, you divided the ions, you split those atoms, and they're no longer whole. And so how do we bring this wholeness back together? We redeem ourselves, right? We pick ourselves up and we say, hey, let's start a new path. How do we start that new path? By you focusing on what it is you want. And so if you want a whole future, then you need to come back in the present moment and have whole thoughts. What do whole thoughts look like? Well, they include your thoughts that are followed by the heart, that are then mimicked or brought out into this world through the hands. And again, that could be however you need to, the hand, it's not necessarily the physical hands, yes. It's normally bringing to fruition in the physical realm from the unseen to the seen, right? That's the hands, right? So then we can handle what's going on in our life. And the way we handle our life, we have to decide what future. Now, before we can even decide what future, we have to make a choice. What's the difference? We've talked about it many times and in the past decades, if you've been in my classes, right? First, we've got to figure out what we don't want in life, and that's what we normally get first, is what we don't want. And then from that, we can form a thought. Because in order to get a future you want, you have to start right now, in the unfolding moment, by creating new thought, non-poverty ones. And so we begin to have rich thinking, right? We begin to see things back as whole and beautiful. Things are as they are. When we begin and decide, right? And once we understand what it is we do want, then we have to make a choice. Okay, I choose to not be bifurcated. I choose this. I choose whole thought as opposed to divided thought. And then once I finally choose, okay, I'm going to go with whole thought, right? Pure thought, taking responsibility for thoughts, actions, and emotions, right? Whole thoughts. And once I have that, then I'm going to decide, okay, that's the thought that I'm going to choose, a whole thought. And once I have that whole thought, then I'm going to commit to that whole thought. Now, commitment in one sense is we got to understand, why is it that we have difficulty committing, right? Committing is because we are still believing our lies, right? Where do we get the lies from? Why don't we trust other people? It's because, and again, why don't we trust people? Because we don't trust ourselves. Why don't we trust ourselves? Because we've lied to ourselves our whole lives, right? We've told ourselves and covered up stuff that's not really what it is. So it's getting back to uncovering those lies and then not looking at them at lies, but looking and reframing them as it's who you are, what your thought of you is. So if that thought of who you is not who you are, then we have to decide and make a new thought, right? Choose that new thought, decide that you're going to choose that new thought, then commit to that thought. It's not trying to drastically or radically change that thought, because your body, you're still not used to not telling yourself lies. So again, moderation. Moderation in one sense is self-control. So who's in control of your life? Who's in control of your thoughts? You are, unless you've allowed someone else to think for you. If you've allowed the TV or the political narrative or the religious narrative, or whatever this narrative is, or the scientific narrative, whichever one you're believing, right? The reason, again, why the same sense we don't trust other people or ourselves is because we put our trust into something else and it didn't work out. Then in return has split our life into 2 or 3 or 4 different ways of thinking, so we can't get a unified thought. And so by choosing, committing, or choosing, deciding, and committing to yourself with self-control, right, that's going to redeem your life. Right, that's where you're going to buy back your life for the rest of your life, and you're going to make that decision that says, hey, right now, starting right now, that's the commitment. I'm going to start thinking of a new future, a whole future, a joyous future, right? Whatever that is for you, without anyone else's input. It's got to be your input, and then start trusting yourself, right? Redeem yourself. Go ahead and commit to getting your life back for the rest of your life. Alright guys, that's what I got for you today. Appreciate you hanging in there. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And then remember, use your head. Get that pure thought coming through that creates a new future. And then bringing in the heart, making sure the heart's whole, not divided. Alright, make sure we have our full thoughts, our committed thoughts, that then feel joyous in our heart, and then bring it out into this world through the hands, from the unseen into the seen. Peace.